You've seen Druski make white people mad. You've seen him upset the Hebrew Israelites, but now, he's managed to piss off the stud community. And trust me, this time it's not just comedy. It's turning into one of the most uncomfortable conversations in Black and LGBTQ culture right now. So what did Druski really do, and why is everyone so mad? Let's talk about it. There's a growing frustration with the way Druski engages with lesbian culture, and it's not hard to see why. What started as lighthearted humor and satire has now evolved into something that many see as exploitative, insensitive, or tone-deaf. If there were a modern-day version of Everybody Hates Chris, some might joke that it would be called Everybody Hates Druski, because lately, he seems to have a talent for making nearly every group mad at him. Over the past few years, Druski's comedic style has become synonymous with controversy. He's gone from offending white audiences with racial jokes to drawing backlash from the Hebrew Israelite community. And now, he's angered a different demographic entirely, the stud community within Black queer culture. This isn't just another internet uproar or a brief moment of social media outrage. It reflects a deeper, ongoing conversation about representation, boundaries, and the fine line between comedy and disrespect. To understand the frustration, it helps to unpack what a stud actually represents. In Black culture, the term refers to a masculine-presenting lesbian, often someone who embraces traits traditionally associated with manhood, confidence, swagger, assertiveness, but within a female body and queer identity. Studs have historically carved out their own powerful space in both LGBTQ+ and Black cultural circles, representing resilience, self-expression, and a defiance of traditional gender norms. They are both celebrated and misunderstood, often balancing pride in their identity with the pressure of societal misconceptions. Enter Druski, whose comedy often revolves around pushing social boundaries. In projects like Could Have Been Love and other viral sketches, he has built a brand around exaggerated humor, blending flirtation, satire, and awkward encounters. But in several of these pieces, his interactions with studs, usually in the form of flirty banter or mock romance, have rubbed people the wrong way. In these skits, Druski typically plays himself, a charming, goofy, overconfident man who treats masculine-presenting women as if they're just one joke away from switching teams. He flirts, jokes, and sometimes even initiates physical affection, playing it off as harmless fun. To his fans, this is part of his comedic genius, his ability to poke fun at social dynamics, gender, and attraction. To his critics, however, it's a form of mockery that trivializes real identities. For many within the queer community, especially Black lesbians, the humor hits a nerve. It's not simply that Druski jokes about attraction or sexuality, it's how he does it. His sketches often center on the idea of flipping a stud, implying that their sexuality or masculine identity is just a phase waiting to be undone by the right man. This trope has deep, painful roots. Historically, lesbian and queer women, particularly masculine-presenting ones, have faced ridicule, objectification, and even violence from men who refuse to take their sexuality seriously. When that dynamic is turned into a joke, it can feel less like comedy and more like reinforcement of an age-old form of disrespect. What complicates matters further is that Druski often cloaks this behavior in irony. He's not a villain. He's a comedian. His defenders argue that he's merely holding up a mirror to society, showing us the absurdities of gender and attraction through humor. And it's true that comedy has always been a powerful tool for social commentary, but intent doesn't always erase impact. What may be funny to one audience can be deeply triggering to another. The question then becomes, is Druski using satire to challenge stereotypes or to profit from them? On one hand, there's an argument to be made that his work opens up conversations that people might otherwise avoid. He exposes the uncomfortable truths about how masculinity and femininity are perceived, even within queer spaces. His interactions with studs, some say, highlight how society still struggles with women who embody masculine energy. Perhaps he's parodying the very men who see studs as conquests, showing how ridiculous that mentality is. But on the other hand, the line between satire and exploitation is razor thin. When you playfully reenact harmful stereotypes without explicitly challenging them, the message becomes blurred. What the comedian might see as mockery of ignorance, audiences might interpret as mockery of identity. And when the laughter comes at the expense of a marginalized group, it can perpetuate exactly what the art form is supposed to critique. Beyond the sketches themselves, Druski's situation also reflects a broader cultural tension around comedy in the social media era. Today's comedians walk a tightrope. They're expected to be edgy and authentic, but also socially aware and politically correct. What once passed as just jokes in the early 2000s doesn't fly anymore. Audiences now demand sensitivity, especially when the humor involves groups who have historically been silenced or stereotyped. In this climate, Druski's brand of humor feels both bold and risky. His comedy thrives on shock value, yet it often relies on dynamics that modern audiences are growing tired of, especially jokes about gender or sexuality that punch down instead of up. For older fans, his work might seem harmless, even refreshing in its irreverence. But for younger viewers, who've grown up in a world more attuned to inclusivity, the humor feels outdated and disrespectful. That generational divide is part of what fuels the debate. On one side, people argue that comedy should remain a space where nothing is off limits, where creators can explore taboos without censorship. On the other, critics believe that true comedy evolves with culture, finding new ways to be daring without dismissing people's identities. Druski, perhaps unintentionally, has become the battleground for that discussion. Still, it's hard to deny that Druski's charisma and comedic timing are part of what makes him so captivating and so divisive. He has a gift for turning uncomfortable social truths into viral moments. But with that influence comes responsibility. When millions of viewers are watching, every joke lands differently, especially when it touches on marginalized communities. At its core, the controversy surrounding Druski and his portrayal of studs isn't just about one comedian or one set of jokes, it's about visibility and respect. Black queer women, and studs in particular, have spent decades fighting to be seen not as punchlines or curiosities, but as whole, complex individuals. They've had to carve out space in both the Black community and the LGBTQ+ world, often facing rejection from both. When someone like Druski, who wields mainstream visibility, uses their image as comedic material, it risks undoing some of that hard-earned progress. Even if unintentionally, it sends a message that their identity is up for debate, that their masculinity is something to be teased or undone for laughs. Ultimately, this debate circles back to one timeless truth: representation matters. How we portray people, especially those whose voices are often sidelined, shapes how the world perceives them. Comedy can be powerful when it provokes thought and builds empathy, but it loses that power when it reduces people to caricatures. So, while everybody hates Druski might be an exaggeration, the sentiment behind it reveals something real. Audiences aren't just reacting to jokes. They're reacting to years of being misunderstood, misrepresented, and misheard. If Druski wants to keep making people laugh, perhaps it's time to make sure the laughter uplifts as much as it entertains.
There are so many straight men who really enjoy sexualizing studs and masked lesbians, and we all know the harm that can come when that's accepted to do that. Similarly to the barbers who enjoy whenever they have a mask stud, a mask or a stud client, they kind of seeing if they can flirt with them. All of that media, I feel contributes to grape culture.
This seems to be a recurring pattern with Druski. He frequently features masculine-presenting lesbians, often referred to as studs, on his shows. On camera, he flirts with them, sometimes even shares a kiss, and plays up the tension for entertainment. Naturally, this has sparked backlash from parts of the LGBTQ+ community, with many women expressing frustration and calling him out for crossing boundaries.
Y'all be out here sneaking, and creeping. And then you let the nigga get you pregnant? And you thought we was finna rock with that? Not the real ones. Not the ones who really with the shits.
Let's be real for a second. Some of the outrage feels exaggerated. One woman even suggested that what Druski does borders on assault, but that's a serious stretch. At its core, his content is meant to be comedic, even if it occasionally lands awkwardly. Yes, it can feel cringeworthy or offensive to some viewers, but it's also true that everyone involved seems to participate voluntarily. No one's being coerced or forced into these situations, and that's an important distinction to make. Still, the criticism persists. Many feel that the women in his skits appear uncomfortable or overly sexualized, as if they're being objectified for laughs. And that concern opens up a larger conversation. So, why exactly is Druski facing such intense backlash right now? A lot of it stems from a controversy brewing online. Some of the women presented on his shows as studs are being accused of not being authentic members of that community. Within queer spaces, that's a sensitive issue. The debate touches on the idea of DL studs, women who present themselves as masculine or identify as lesbians publicly, yet continue to engage romantically or sexually with men in private. This blurring of identity lines has created tension and confusion within the community, and Druski's content seems to have reignited those frustrations.
Y'all, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something going on out here, and I don't know if it's my algorithm per se or what, but like, it's a lot of studs that's going back to men. I'm seeing a lot of content about women telling their stories about how they going back to men because women are just too wicked out here. Like, these women aren't just, they're not over their gay phases and they're just like, okay, fun's over. Like, nah, like, they like, nah, I really do like women. I want to take a woman serious, but you know what? These women are so wicked out here, bro. Like, if I'm going to be with a being, I might as well just pick the lesser out of two evils.
In this case, there's a woman talking about a so-called DL stud, a masculine-presenting lesbian who became pregnant by a man and decided to keep the baby. That situation caused tension within parts of the lesbian community, with some people questioning her authenticity. Their argument was simple. How can you claim to be part of our community if you're still sleeping with men? While that perspective reflects how some in the community feel, it also raises a complicated truth. At the end of the day, she's still a woman with her own choices and experiences. It's not unlike imagining a gay man who secretly starts seeing a woman, falls in love, and even starts a family. Some might cheer him on, saying, "Welcome back to the straight world," while others in the LGBTQ+ space might reject him for stepping outside what they see as the boundaries of their identity. It's a tough contradiction, being judged for showing attraction that doesn't align neatly with the label you've embraced. And it highlights a deeper irony. Everyone alive today exists because of some form of heterosexual connection. Yet people are often ostracized for expressing it, adding another layer. There's also been a growing conversation on TikTok within the lesbian community. Many studs, or women who present in a masculine way, are openly sharing how challenging it's become to date women. Their frustrations reveal just how complex modern queer relationships have grown, especially when expectations around gender and attraction keep shifting.
Studs sneak penis or have sex with men because men treat them and sex them in a way that they desire. Men appreciate the woman that they are and they admire the woman that they are. They're able to see them as women, and studs desire that. I know, shocker, right? But yeah, no, studs actually desire that, and most feminine presenting women do not treat studs as like the women that they are.
This is something I've actually discussed before on my main channel. If you think back about 10 years ago, during what people called the early days of Black YouTube, there was a wave of Black men voicing frustrations about their relationships with Black women. That movement eventually grew into what became known as the Black manosphere, giving rise to figures like Kevin Samuels. Now, an interesting shift is happening. We're hearing similar conversations, but this time from women, specifically studs. These are the masculine-presenting women in the LGBTQ+ community who typically date other women. What's fascinating is that many of them, who once confidently joked about stealing your girl or taking baby mamas, are now expressing the same kinds of relationship struggles men once talked about. They're describing their partners, other women, as entitled, unaccountable, and unwilling to contribute meaningfully to a relationship. Some even admit that the dating pool feels so frustrating that they'd rather just be with a human, meaning they're open to dating men again. And that's where Druski's content hits a nerve. Beneath the humor and satire, his sketches might be unintentionally touching on something deeper. The idea that some studs are beginning to question their roles and preferences. They're tired of relationship dynamics that don't fulfill them. And while they still identify as women, they also crave affection, attention, and romance, things that transcend labels. One woman even mentioned that these studs, despite their tough exteriors, still want to be desired, treated kindly, and genuinely loved. That reality challenges a lot of assumptions within the community. And it's exactly the unspoken tension that makes Druski's skits both controversial and revealing.
Brought to my attention this morning that Druski is now facing backlash because studs don't like the image that they're getting whenever they go on Druski's shows. One of the studs just came out and recently said all the studs on Druski's show feel uncomfortable whenever they're on his show. My only question is, if you guys feel so uncomfortable, how come even on Druski's dating show, when studs were willingly showing up and participating, they were also in said confessionals saying, oh, we're only doing this for the money. Like, I'm only doing this for the money. I'm just trying to get that bag and then I can leave. Druski's still just going to be my homeboy. And then you have other studs that are really playing into the character of being a straight female. So now you guys are having an issue because people are actually laughing at it.
There's
like
another
it's funny.
layer to all this that's worth unpacking. Some people within the community have pointed out that a number of studs, women who present masculinely but date women, are secretly involved with men. Online, this is often called sneaking the D, meaning they maintain a stud identity publicly but engage in heterosexual relationships privately. At its core, this often comes down to something human, wanting to be appreciated. Many studs are tired of always having to take on the man role in their relationships. They may be expected to act as the provider, the protector, or the emotionally steady partner, yet deep down, they're still women who crave affection, comfort, and care. Being in that role can be draining. In traditional masculinity, there's an unspoken expectation to sacrifice your own emotional needs for others, to provide stability while suppressing vulnerability. Some women in the stud community are realizing that playing that part isn't always fulfilling. When they don't feel valued or emotionally cared for, some quietly turn toward men for that sense of appreciation, leading to the phenomenon of DL studs. This dynamic is one of the reasons Druski's sketches are stirring so much debate. In his comedy, he flirts with or kisses studs, which some viewers see as reinforcing the stereotype that all studs are secretly into men. That perception has frustrated many within the LGBTQ+ community, particularly studs who are fully committed to their lesbian identity and dislike being portrayed as convertible. The backlash has grown. Recently, some studs featured on Druski's shows said they felt uncomfortable with how they were portrayed. However, critics have noted a contradiction. Many of those same participants admitted in their behind-the-scenes confessionals that they joined the show for the exposure or the paycheck. "I'm just here for the money," a few said openly, acknowledging that they were playing a role for entertainment's sake. And that's really the heart of the debate: performance versus authenticity. Comedy often involves playing characters, and many actors have portrayed identities different from their own. Think of Queen Latifah in Living Single. She played a straight woman on TV for years, despite later being open about her queerness. That's acting. That's performance. So while Druski's humor may sometimes cross the line into cringeworthy territory, it's still rooted in comedy, a space built on exaggeration and social commentary. The irony is that audiences usually love him until the joke lands on their own community. When he pokes fun at others, whether white people, Christians, or Hebrew Israelites, it's considered hilarious. But once the focus shifts, the laughter turns into outrage. At the end of the day, it's still comedy. And perhaps the real challenge lies in learning how to laugh without losing sight of the humanity behind the humor. At the end of the day, people are going to be who they are. Those who identify as gay will continue living that truth. Those who identify as studs will keep embracing that identity. And those who live as studs but still secretly engage with men, what some call sneaking D, are likely going to keep doing it. That's just human nature. People make choices based on what they feel and desire in the moment, whether that's bisexual, heterosexual, or somewhere in between. And in that sense, what Druski is talking about isn't completely off base. His comedy touches on realities that already exist in many Black communities. Just as there are DL men, men who present themselves as straight but secretly have relationships with other men, there are also women who appear to be exclusively lesbian, but quietly maintain connections with men. Why does this happen? Often it's more complex than outsiders assume. In some cases, women who become part of the stud community were once in relationships with men before exploring same-sex relationships. Sometimes they're drawn to women who encourage them to try dating outside their previous comfort zone. But that doesn't necessarily erase their attraction to men, it just adds another layer to their identity that's not always easy to express. Publicly, there are even stories circulating online of studs, jokingly admitting that if they ever traveled to places like Africa or Jamaica, they'd make sure to have a little fun with a man. It might sound humorous, but it underscores a truth that's both simple and universal. People are complex. Attraction, identity, and desire rarely fit neatly into boxes. So, while Druski's sketches might stir controversy or make some viewers uncomfortable, they also highlight the nuances that exist within human sexuality and community dynamics. At the end of the day, people will continue to live, love, and act according to who they are, regardless of labels or public opinion.